This is the Daily Tech News for Thursday, May 15th, 2025. We tell you what you need to know, follow up on the context of those stories, and help each other understand.
Today, Dr. Niki clarifies changes coming to U.S. science funding, and Jason here has been using the new Motorola Razr Ultra for more than a week and has some impressions to share.
Yeah, I'm staring at it right now. It's pretty... Oh, sorry. I'm Jason Howell.
And I'm Huyen now.
I wanted to dive right into it. Let's start with what you need to know with the big story. Turns out I can dive right into it because it's the big story. Today is the day that everyone can finally get a hold of Motorola's next big foldable smartphone. And there are a few in the new family, the Moto Razr, of course, the Razr Plus. But the latest inclusion is the Moto Razr Ultra. I have it in my hands right now. I've had this Ultra for more than a week. And I'm not quite ready to give my full review. Sometimes for me, a week does not feel like enough time. So I like to pause a little bit and let it, kind of stew, let it percolate a bit. But I definitely have some impressions that we can talk about. And I'm happy to do this with you, Huyen, because I know you are like a foldable phone queen. You love your foldables.
I do.
And I haven't had a whole lot of experience with them. So as we dive into this, I'm curious to know kind of how you feel about this. Before we get into things, though, I'm not going to give you an insane list of spec salad, but I will give you some of the important things. $1299.99 to start, so $1,300. It's a premium smartphone. 7-inch foldable display on the inside, 7 inches, pretty tall. 4-inch OLED on the cover. It's high end inside. Snapdragon 8 Elite, 16 gigs of RAM. You got 512 or 1 terabyte of storage. 2 rear cameras, 1 on the front, all of them 50 megapixel. So that means there's no telephoto lens. You sacrifice that. 4,700 milliamp hour battery. So sub 5,000 milliamp hour battery, which we can definitely talk about. Pretty fast wireless, wired charging at 68 watts, 30 watt wireless, IP48 dust to water protection. Okay, so those are the essential specs that you got to kind of get out of the way when you talk about smartphones in this day and age and everything. Before we kind of get into impressions and stuff, you do love your foldables.
I do.
Have the Razrs ever appealed to you?
I do. In fact, inside of my drawer right over here, I have like the first generation of Razr. I think the one that was super, super old school. The one that looked like the old dumb phone. Is that PC to say about phones, dumb phones, as opposed to smartphones?
I don't think they have emotions.
They don't have to. So
it's all right.
Yeah. So I think I do love foldables, and for sure the clamshell flippables, however you want to, whatever name you want to give them, are super popular, I think, especially because, well, in this case, not so much the price point, but because they generally are a bit cheaper. But Moto's the OG, aren't they? Like just literally the OG, in that the OG Razr was one of the most desirable phones back in the day. I remember seeing one. I was like, gosh, I gotta have that. I
never had it. Did you have the original?
I did not. I had a relative who was like an exec, and they were able to get it for their company. And I was like, man, see, and that was the kind of the image, right? Just like the super cool person of some means, like that's not the sound. That's not the hinge. That's the correct sound. I can't make like a sound. Yeah, exactly.
Here, go ahead and listen to this. Okay. Oh, I don't know if you heard that.
I did hear it. Yes, there we go.
Yes, that's the snapping close, which is iconic. Close, yeah. But and you do get that with the Razr Ultra, of course. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you get that with the other variants in this kind of release cycle. But so I can tell you a few of my impressions ahead of a review. I'm definitely working on a full review, so I don't know when that's going to come in the next couple of weeks. I'm actually considering keeping this as my smartphone for Google I/O, which I will be going to next week. But I would say, on the positive side, kind of to what you were talking about, it's got this elegance to it, right? And actually the version of it that I have has the wood back with the wood grain, actual wood grain back cover to it, was what I received from Motorola when they sent this to me. And it's just a really striking design. It looks beautiful. It contrasts really nicely with the kind of like shiny gold quality of the hinge that feels solid. And, the frame kind of has this gold quality too. I had a situation where I was going to my daughter's swim meet last weekend, and I got to the front and, went to pay or went to show my ID on the phone, and the guy that was running the ticket thing was like, all right. And then, whoa, what phone is that? Like totally stopped mid sentence. It was like, I need to know what phone that is. I need to get it. And I'm like, sorry, dude, it's not out yet. That's always fun to say. But, you know, design wise, like it feels like a premium device. Thankfully, you know, because it's $1,300, you get that. Cover screen on the front is really large and very usable, totally useful on its own, fits in the palm of your hand really nice. And you can just watch a YouTube video on that smaller screen without opening things up if, you know, you're on the go or whatever. And then it does have an AI button on the side, which I think a lot of reviewers are calling out as kind of useless, because I think the feature set integrated with the AI button isn't really a wide use case quite yet, but it does the thing that I talked about with the Nothing Phone 3A that had the essential button on the side, in that you can use that button to fire off a super quick voice recording that is immediately transcribed. And I, as a ADHD riddled guy, love that feature, because when I'm out and about navigating the world, instead of having to like write down this random idea that pops in my head, I just use that button and I speak it and it's transcribed and it's there. It's like sorted into the folder and waiting for me when I check it. And I just love being able to do that on the fly on a whim.
I think that really fits though with the flippable, because the idea with the whole front screen is, and this is, I guess, a debate depending on which specific flippable you have, how big their screen is, what kind of apps the OEM allows it. But it just makes sense, right? Because the part of the point of these modern flip phones is that you can use it to some extent without opening it. And I feel like that AI button fits in just right in there. As you said, you just pull it out. You know, if you need to check something really quick, check notifications, you check the front screen, you don't have to open the phone. And just as you just said, if it fits your use case, it fits your use case really well. And I think that even applies to the cover screen. Like not everybody needs that kind of like immediate, you know, or I don't know about me. With me, it's more like I can't help but open up my phone and look at things. But, you know, I think if it fits your lifestyle, it all kind of goes together. And I have to say, I have missed wood, like actual wood on my phones. I think it's been like 6 years or something. No, we talk about like soft touch plastic versus metal, but I like that wood's getting it back into the arena as a contender, because that's pretty cool. I don't know if it's actually sustainable, but it looks.
I mean, I will say it does give it a little slippability, slippable quality. Okay. And when you're really unfolded, one of my kind of complaints, I guess, is that the interior display is so dang tall. It's a 7-inch display. So it's really a two-handed phone experience when you unfold it. Because if you try and do this with one hand, you're not going to be able to reach places, but B, you're still going to try. And with that wood paneling on the back, there's nothing really to prevent it from just like sliding out if you're not careful. And that is one thing about this device, is that it may be more durable than I believe it to be, because I haven't thrown it on the ground to see if it would survive. Like, I'm not going to put it through a stress test like that, but I'm worried about dropping it because it is thin enough and it is kind of sleek enough and kind of slippery enough that I'm concerned that maybe the durability might not stand up if I actually did drop it. Let me tell you, I drop things. So it's a legitimate concern.
As someone who has a foldable and who drops things frequently, one sympathizes very, very much. Well, I'm looking forward to what you say, maybe long term, especially if you, not wishing you to drop it, but in case it happens, I'd love to.
Let's not let that happen.
No, not let it happen.
I'm just going to try not to let it happen.
I just think it's brave that you brought it to your daughter's swim meet, because there's a lot of water there. So, I mean,
that's okay. You know, it's got that IP48, so it's protected. Full review coming at some point. Thank you to everyone for allowing us to go Android faithful at the top of this show. But you know, the Razr is a phone that a lot of people are considering. Apple's working on foldable. Yes. I think it's going to be really interesting to see kind of what Apple does in this form factor, because I'd be really surprised if they didn't go with the flippable over the foldable, but who the heck knows? We'll find out when Apple chooses to do so.
Well, DTNS is made possible by you, the listener. And we want to take the time to thank Larry Bailey, Michelle Saju, and I'm so sorry if I mispronounced that, Kirk Stephenson, and William Ford.
Yeah. You're all awesome. You know it. All right, there's more we need to know today. Let's get to the briefs.
Well, the U.S. presidential administration pressed Apple CEO Tim Cook to stop the expansion of iPhone manufacturing in India for the U.S. market, pressing for an increase to its domestic production. Apple has been shifting some production away from China to India to lessen tariff risk and supply chain disruptions, with plans to significantly increase production in India by next year. The U.S. administration has also made comments about the difficulty of selling U.S. products in India. These new remarks directed at Apple are likely part of a larger strategy to pressure India into a better trade deal with the U.S.
Yeah, placing a lot of pressure. Tim Apple under the spotlight, and yeah, I mean, I think the current administration is just looking in all directions to see what kind of levers can be pulled to kind of reinforce the tariff rules and negotiations that they're in the midst of. And I think a lot of big tech is realizing they're playing a big role in that, whether they want to or not. Yeah. They're kind of being put into a position where they have to make some choices that they might not have otherwise been considering to this degree, even, a short year ago. So it's an interesting time.
I wonder how much juice they can actually press out of that apple, but anyway.
Oh, I like what you did there. Coinbase, the largest U.S. cryptocurrency exchange, warned it could face costs of $180 million to $400 million after a recent cyber attack. Hackers bribed overseas support contractors and employees in order to steal user data from less than 1% of Coinbase customers. That information was then used to impersonate Coinbase. This was a total social engineering hack, and trick customers into transferring their holdings into their possession. Coinbase has pledged to reimburse its impacted users. Coinbase also refused to pay a $20 million ransom demand and instead offered that amount as a reward for information leading to the arrest of those responsible.
All right, we'll have another Apple story for you, but kind of on the other side of things, Apple is now displaying warning labels on App Store listings in the EU for apps using alternative non-Apple payment methods. They're marked with a red exclamation mark and critical alert language cautioning that using such methods is less private, less secure, and feature-rich when compared to Apple's official system. Apple states the importance of trust in any third-party payment provider with the customer's personal and payment information. And of course, all of this is in response to the regulatory scrutiny Apple is facing in the EU.
I mean, Apple has to make some of these has to make the changes, right? Mm-hmm. And then they are. I think it's easy to look at this and there's probably some truth to it. Look at it and say, oh, see, now Apple's just going, whole hog on on scare tactics and everything. Mm-hmm. But it kind of happens on Android too, right? Yeah. Like when you try to uncheck the unknown sources dialog, which is what allows you to install apps and APK files outside of the Play Store on your phone, you do get a little bit of a warning. And it's true. People should know that. If you're doing this, you do face a risk. It's just how much and how severely is Apple going with the red exclamation mark, making it a huge deal when maybe it's not as big a deal. I will give credit to that argument.
No, that's actually really fair. And you are correct that there are places. And I guess just in case you're audio only, this looks like, oh my God, your system alert. It kind of looks almost like one of those spam pop-ups you get in the website. It is hard to miss. And it is hard to not feel that it is a legitimate warning of some kind of intrusive, malicious thing. So, and I do agree with you. There is a valid reason for doing this because I'm sure there's going to be some point where some malintent having third party payment system is out there, or one that isn't as secure. Right. But I don't know. I still feel like it's a little petty.
I think it's a balance. It's a balance issue, right? Yeah. It's how do you warn without going totally overboard to where it's obvious that you're using the warning as a weapon? And
100%.
So anyways, Perplexity announced a partnership with PayPal, making it very difficult to say because of all the P's, enabling U.S. users to make instant purchases within its chat interface using PayPal or Venmo. PayPal will handle the entire transaction process, including payments, shipping, tracking, and support. The one-click purchase process will be streamlined with passkey checkout as well. The new integration into Perplexity AI search is set to launch this summer.
I'm so sorry. I just think it's amazing how much work your pop filter probably had to do for all those P's right there.
You know, it's a microphone I don't normally use, and it doesn't have a pop filter in front of it. So I really hope that I didn't just destroy your ears.
All right. Well, on a more serious note, Google issued emergency security updates for Chrome to fix a high severity vulnerability that could allow remote attackers to steal sensitive data and possibly even take over user accounts. The flaw stems from insufficient policy enforcement in Chrome's loader component, which can enable malicious HTML pages to actually extract query parameters like OAuth tokens. Google says the exploit is active and possibly in use and encourages users to update their browsers immediately. Yes, please.
I feel like every other day I've got that little, the like blue button up in the top right corner of my Chrome browser saying new Chrome available.
Update me now.
This is one of them. So this is going to make some people really happy because we've been waiting a while. After a few years of waiting for Apple to deliver on its promise, CarPlay Ultra is finally rolling out, starting with the new Aston Martin vehicles in the US and Canada. It's a major update from the original CarPlay, deeply integrates into the car's systems. That includes the instrument cluster, climate, radio controls all on screen. Also, voice commands with Siri and physical buttons, of course. The update includes real-time car data, iPhone-powered widgets, and navigation, all presented in a customized interface that is tailored to every automaker's brand identity. Apple has confirmed that Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis will follow with broader availability in the coming year.
All right. Well, Huawei's new Watch 5 has an interesting health tracking feature called multi-sensing X-Tap technology that integrates sensors into a fingertip panel on the side of the watch. The sensor measures EKGs, blood oxygen, arterial stiffness, and more once the fingertip is pressed against it. So fingertips are actually a rich source of capillary clusters, making them particularly potent for accurate readings when compared to the wrist. Huawei says this delivers a 10 to 50-fold improvement and allows for much quicker readouts. The watch is available for pre-order in the UK and Europe for $399.99 euros and 499.99 British pounds sterling, and will launch on March 26.
Yeah, not going to see Huawei's watch in the US necessarily, but still interesting nonetheless. You use your finger instead of the sensor that's resting up against your wrist underneath. So it's kind of like, it's kind of, again, a balance point. Do I want the extra kind of inconvenience of having to touch my finger to it in order to get faster readouts and more accuracy? Or am I cool with a little less accuracy, less speed through the kind of passive wearing it already kind of approach?
I literally had this conversation, but not about this, obviously not about Huawei Watch in particular, but with blood pressure monitoring, because Whoop, the fitness tracker that I use, just recently launched 2 new models, one of which does blood pressure. And just a colleague was just complaining that it's taking a while. And there seems to be like a lot of variance in it. And I looked into this a little bit, and, Apple has been trying to get blood pressure monitoring in the Apple Watch. And it just seems like certain things like blood pressure monitoring is really, really difficult with just the sensors that are available on the wrist. So I think this makes a lot of sense. Especially if you're someone who really needs this kind of medical monitoring, it seems like worth it, right? To just have a little bit of less convenience in having it just sit on your wrist just for that accuracy. So we need this. I love stuff like this, like the different modalities for health information. It's just cool. Too bad we won't get it here.
Yeah, indeed.
All right. Well, those are the essentials for today. Let's dive a little deeper.
All right, things are becoming clearer on changes to U.S. science funding, and Tom Merritt checked in with Dr. Niki to get the latest.
Dr. Niki, thank you again for doing the Lord's work and keeping us up to date on science, which may be a weird way of phrasing that.
Yeah, well, it's a weird time. I'm happy to be back. Last time I did this was April 15th, and we have new things happening. I did want to kind of bring up why are we talking about science federal funding on a tech podcast? Well, I think most tech that we use is in the US that's like US funded is funded by the NSF or the NIH. Do you think, do you have anything in your house that you think would be considered part of that?
Oh, yeah. There is the internet that was funded by development from the United States Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency.
Yeah. The internet's a good one. Also, if you've ever gotten an MRI, that's NSF, I think.
Yeah. I don't have one of those in my house, though.
It may be against your HIPAA, but if you've ever gotten or given a kidney donor matching is actually a mathematical equation that got developed by the NSF.
Okay.
And you may remember, and I don't know if we covered it, probably not, but in 2019, the first image of a black hole, you may not have that hanging in your house, but that was the NSF.
That was a singular
Just a reminder,
discovery.
that all these things are funded by these. And so when these government changes affect these big foundations, then that means we get less cool sciencey things. So that's why I got to talk about this with you.
Yeah. So let's go back to the earliest thing since we last spoke. What is the first thing that is updated?
All right. So starting at April 16, a big one, the National Science Foundation, NSF, stopped awarding grants, saying that they needed a secondary review from staff. And staff have been asked to determine whether projects within their field of expertise, because they each have a specific field, will contradict any presidential directives. We kind of talked about this in the previous updates, that there's some new words that they don't want being used and certain topics, like this banned word list we covered, I think, in February.
Right.
So just to keep in mind, NSF on average covers about 38,000 proposals that they sift through every year and generally award about 10,000 of those. And we're kind of flatlining this year at whatever amount got awarded until this pause. And it has not been unpaused since then. This was April 16th.
Okay, so those grant awards have remained paused for close to a month.
Yeah, and it is specifically targeting ones that were flagged before. We may have talked about this, the one that I'm on the list of woke grants. They're one of the main ones that are part of this. But all grants right now are paused for NSF.
Okay. And then there's a consolidation at NIH?
We can call it that. Yeah. So there's a 40% proposed budget cut to NIH. And they also want to merge the 27 different institutes into 8, including eliminating nursing and minority health institutes. So some of the NIH institutes that you may have heard of are the Institute of Aging, so things that deal with Alzheimer's disease and all kinds of things that deal with aging. Oh, we have so many general medicine. There's a heart disease one. Basically, all these sorts of medical diseases have their own institute. And because they're cutting costs, they're trying to merge them into different ones, which creates all kinds of chaos and general confusion, and no one's quite sure what's going on there.
Then everybody's probably heard about effects on universities, but we have some specific ones to talk about.
Yep. This was announced April 18th. So we talked about freezing happening in Columbia last month, and now it's been followed up specifically from NIH, freezing grants to Harvard, one of the bigger ones, specifically Harvard, which I think was over 9 million, frozen Brown, Northwestern, and Cornell universities. Keeping in mind that these funds awarded by NIH are mandated constitutionally, but nevertheless, they've been frozen. Hence them being
frozen, not canceled, because they are not allowed to cancel them. Because Congress has apportioned it.
Yeah, but they have, we'll get to it.
Yeah.
There's some other things like that have happened. And of course, because this money is used to pay for contracts and different research projects. Hundreds of research projects at these institutes have now received stop work orders. And that delays all kinds of research. As you can imagine, these are really big, heavy hitters in the research world in the US. So things from ALS treatment research all the way to affecting the Artemis II moon orbit mission and everything in between have been paused by this freeze.
And then more grants terminated from the NSF.
Yeah, so it's not getting any better. I mean, as we go ahead in time, more and more grants are getting paused because they basically said, let's go. And then all the different agencies started pulling all the ones they said they were going to pull. So that includes NSF. They terminated then on this date 200 more grants, specifically targeting grants that are aiming to improve demographics of the scientific workforce. Keep in mind that the goal of the NSF and one of the reasons the NSF was founded was to increase or change the demographics of the scientific workforce, increase minority participation and things like that. Usually before all this, every time you write a grant, you have to say how this is going to help those goals. And now they're saying this is no longer part of their goals. This also includes termination of grants specifically targeted at combating misinformation and disinformation.
All right. And then yet more terminated grants?
Yeah, more. So this one's pretty, I think you could have guessed. So the Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA, over the last few months has been really getting reduced, not only for grants, but everything, staff and other projects that it does. But they are also terminating grants. No specific number has been given and no specific reason has been given. I will state that for NSF and EPA, the grants that are terminated were already awarded. And so that's where you mentioned with the constitutionally approved. These ones have been terminated. And so basically they gave out the money and now they're ending it and potentially taking it back in some cases.
Oh, interesting. So it's not just we won't add grants. It's you have to give back the money because we're not approving it anymore. We're changing.
Unapproving it, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. That's complicated.
Yeah.
Then we have a good story.
Yes. Man, I haven't brought you a good science news story in 4 months or 5. But okay. So kind of bad, kind of good. NIH originally cut this project. So this is the first and largest women-centered study called the Women's Health Initiative. It's been running for over 30 years. People really pushed to get this happening. And then the new administration terminated it. However, about 5 days later, they rolled this back because they had huge pushback from scientists, senators, and even celebrities. So when you push back, it works.
At least in this case, yeah.
They reinstated it, at least in this case. So good news. Yeah.
And then the last one involves the NSF.
Yeah. So this week, NSF turned 75. So all the things we talked about before with the MRI and the internet, basically like showing their legacy over the last 75 years. And, you know, NSF was also funded after World War II when we were trying to recruit a bunch of scientists who were fleeing Europe. NSF kind of started to build America's scientific legacy by creating this foundation.
The brain drain, as it is famously called.
So we sucked up the brain drain, right? And now kind of the opposite is happening. But at the same time of NSF's 75th birthday, it's been announced that its 37 divisions are being abolished and many of their programs are going to get cut. So sounds very similar to what's happening to NIH because it is. This is because they proposed a budget cut of 55%. And this, of course, means that there's going to be a lot more layoffs predicted probably to get announced on Friday. They like to do these announcements on Fridays. So far, over 1,400 grants worth $1 billion have been terminated. So that's where we're at as of today, May 14th.
Well, Dr. Niki, thank you. As painful as it may be sometimes for you to page through all of this stuff and as confusing as it can be sometimes, I appreciate you keeping us updated on this. And we'll have other more practical or interesting or fun science news to talk to you about next time, I know. But I really appreciate you doing this for us on the monthly.
I'm happy to be the person to spread the news. And I'd love to hear people's feedback too if I missed something.
Yeah. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. And if people want to follow you directly, where should they go?
They can find me on my website at NicoleAckermans.com. And I'm also at Blue Sky under the same name.
Thanks, Niki.
Well, what do you want to hear us talk about on the show? One way to let us know is in our subreddit. Submit stories and vote on them at www.reddit.com/r/dailytechnewsshow.
We end every episode of DTNS with some shared wisdom. And thankfully, Chris was there with this, helping us understand from the Patreon.
All right, Chris writes saying, the public Wi-Fi login information syncing for iOS reminded me of a feature from my old Windows phone. If I remember correctly, it could automatically fill the Wi-Fi capture screens in with fake information and accept it for you. It was very useful. I'm not sure why no one else seems to offer that anymore.
Yeah, this is so interesting. So reading through this, and this was in a response to the story on Monday that Garmin had said that an upcoming iOS version would have this sort of cross-device syncing for public Wi-Fi information like this. It made me think like, man, do Pixels already do this? Like I'm on the Razr right now, but my Pixel, I know for a fact my Pixel 9 Pro has an insane list of Wi-Fi access points that I've used in the past. I think maybe they do sync across Pixel devices, but they definitely don't sync outside of Pixel devices because I checked it on my Razr and it only has 3 access points logged in there and saved. So definitely not outside.
I would like that automatically filling in Wi-Fi capture screens with fake information, because somehow in 2025, you're still needing to like pretend to give them a real email address just so you can get on the dang Wi-Fi at the airport or where have you. So I'm all there. I wish that would come back, but I just wonder if there's like legal issues why maybe no one does this, because sticking in fake information to a form or something. I don't know, but.
Yeah. Be curious about that. Maybe you know. And if you're thinking about that, you got some insight into that story or something else, share it with us. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. Thanks to Dr. Niki. Thanks to Chris for contributing to today's show. And thank you for being along for Daily Tech News Show. The show is made possible by our patrons on patreon.com/DTNS. And super quick note, once again, Tom is doing a workshop in Austin, Texas, the weekend of June 27th. You can find out more on that at bestnewsever.com.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Oh, hi, Brunson.